I never thought I'd find myself in this position, but here I am, standing at the entrance of a yoga studio, my heart pounding in my chest. The scent of sandalwood and lavender wafts through the air, mingling with the soft sounds of chimes and gentle music that plays in the background. I glance around, taking in the serene atmosphere that seems so incongruous with the storm brewing inside me. My name is Daniel, and I'm a 36-year-old graphic designer. My wife, Sarah, is a vibrant and ambitious woman, a yoga enthusiast who has turned her passion into a career. She's been teaching at this studio for the past year, a place that has become her second home. I remember when she first started practicing yoga, she was so drawn to it as a means of finding balance in her hectic life. I admired her dedication and supported her dreams, never imagining that her pursuit of inner peace would lead to my own unraveling. And then there's Ryan, her yoga instructor. He's the epitome of what society deems a perfect man. Tall, athletic, with sun-kissed skin and an effortless charm that draws people in. The way he moves through poses is mesmerizing, and I've seen the way Sarah's eyes light up when she talks about him. I brushed it off as admiration for her teacher, someone who inspired her to be better. Little did I know that admiration would spiral into something far more dangerous. Our marriage had been good, or so I thought. We had our routines, our shared moments of laughter, and the quiet evenings spent on the couch watching our favorite shows. But lately, I had sensed something was off. Sarah had been distant, her phone glued to her side, and the late-night yoga classes became a frequent excuse for her absences. I tried to dismiss my suspicions, convincing myself that it was merely stress from work or the pressures of teaching. It was easier to live in denial than to confront the truth. But one Saturday morning, everything changed. I decided to surprise her by attending her class, something I had never done before. I thought it would be a nice gesture, a way to support her and perhaps rekindle the connection we once had. As I stepped onto the mat, I felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. I settled into the back corner of the studio, trying to remain inconspicuous. The class began, and I watched as Sarah effortlessly led the group through the poses, her voice calm and soothing. But my attention was drawn to Ryan, who was assisting her, his hands guiding her into deeper stretches. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more between them than just teacher and student. The way they exchanged glances, the subtle touches during demonstrations, it all felt wrong. My heart raced as I noticed Sarah's smile directed at Ryan, a smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, a sense of dread creeping in. I tried to focus on my breathing to clear my mind, but the more I watched, the more the pieces began to fall into place. A sickening realization washed over me. I was losing her, and I had no idea why or how it had happened. As the class progressed, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. I needed proof, something tangible to confirm the gnawing suspicion that had taken root in my mind. After the class ended, as the students began to roll up their mats and chat, I made my way towards Sarah and Ryan. My heart was pounding and my palms were sweaty, but I had to know the truth. In that moment, I overheard them whispering. Sarah's laughter rang out, light and carefree, while Ryan's voice, smooth and inviting, seemed to linger a little too long in the air. I felt the heat rising in my chest, a mix of anger and despair. I turned away, fighting the urge to confront them right then and there. Instead, I slipped out of the studio, my mind racing with thoughts of betrayal. I couldn't breathe. My world felt like it was collapsing around me. I needed a plan, a way to confront this head-on. This wasn't just about me. It was about our marriage, our life together. I would expose them, make sure everyone knew what was really happening behind the facade of tranquility. The thought of public humiliation sent shivers down my spine, but it also ignited a fire within me. I had to take control. As I walked away from the studio, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I would confront Sarah and Ryan in front of everyone. I would turn this betrayal into a moment they would never forget. The days that followed my discovery felt like a blur. I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, confusion, and a deep sense of loss. I couldn't shake the image of Sarah laughing with Ryan from my mind. It haunted me, replaying like a broken record. Each time I closed my eyes, I could see their smiles, hear their whispers. It felt like a dagger twisting in my heart. I spent hours pacing my apartment, grappling with the implications of what I had uncovered. How could she do this to me, to us? I had given her everything, my love, my support, my trust. The thought of her with another man, especially someone so seemingly perfect, sent waves of nausea through me. I felt like a fool, and it was infuriating. My mind raced with scenarios. I could confront her privately, but that felt too easy. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, to understand the pain she had caused. It was about more than just me. It was about holding her accountable for her actions. And what better way to do that than in front of her students, her friends? I envisioned the moment, her shock, the disbelief in her eyes, the way the room would fall silent as I laid bare the truth. It was a twisted sense of justice, but it was the only thing that felt right. As the days turned into a week, I meticulously planned every detail of the confrontation. I knew that Sarah's yoga class was held every Thursday evening, and I marked it on my calendar like a battle plan. I would attend class, stand up in the middle of it, and expose her affair. The thought of it sent a thrill of adrenaline coursing through me. I was no longer just a victim, I was reclaiming my narrative. I spent hours crafting the words I would say. I wanted to be clear and precise, cutting through the facade she had built. I thought about how she would react, the shock that would wash over her face. I imagined the other students. Some would gasp, some would look confused, and I hoped some would feel the same betrayal I felt. Would they see her for what she really was? I wanted them to understand that, beneath the calm exterior, was a woman who had shattered a vow. The night of the confrontation arrived, and I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. I donned a simple black t-shirt and jeans, wanting to appear casual yet resolute. As I walked into the studio, I was struck by the familiar sights and sounds, the calming music, the soft lighting, the scent of essential oils. It felt surreal to be here, knowing what I was about to do. I took a spot at the back of the class, my heart racing as I waited for Sarah to arrive. The other students trickled in, exchanging greetings and settling onto their mats. I could feel their energy, their anticipation for the class, completely unaware of the storm that was about to unfold. When Sarah finally walked in, a radiant smile gracing her face, I felt the floor drop from beneath me. She looked beautiful as always, her hair cascading over her shoulders, a glow in her cheeks. I wanted to reach out and shake her, to make her see the reality of her actions. But I held back, steeling myself for what was to come. The class began, and I focused on my breathing, trying to calm the tempest inside me. As Sarah led the class through various poses, I watched her closely, observing the way she moved with grace and confidence. It was infuriating to see her so at ease, knowing what I knew. I could see Ryan in the corner, adjusting the students, his body language relaxed and inviting. The sight of him sent another wave of anger coursing through me. Time crawled as the class progressed. I felt like I was in a trance, my mind racing with thoughts of how I would execute my plan. Finally, as they moved into a particularly challenging pose, I knew it was time. I stood up, my heart pounding in my ears, and cleared my throat. "Excuse me," I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion. The room fell silent as everyone turned to look at me, surprise etched on their faces. Sarah's eyes widened, confusion flickering across her features. "Daniel," she mouthed, perhaps wondering why I was there. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the moment I had envisioned countless times. "I need to talk about something important, something that affects all of us in this room." Gasps erupted from the students, and I could see Sarah stiffen, her expression shifting from confusion to apprehension. I could feel the weight of their stares, the tension thickening in the air. "Sarah," I continued, my voice rising with determination, "I know about your affair with Ryan. I can't let this go unaddressed." The room erupted into whispers, and I could see the shock on their faces. I had done it. I had exposed her. I could see Sarah's cheeks flush, her mouth opening and closing as if searching for words. Ryan stood frozen, his expression a mix of disbelief and anger. I felt a rush of satisfaction mixed with a pang of sadness. This was the moment I had planned for, but it was also the moment that would change everything. The confrontation had begun, and there was no turning back now. The silence in the studio was deafening, each heartbeat echoing in my ears as I stood there, my words hanging in the air like a heavy fog. I could see a mix of emotions wash over Sarah's face: shock, fear, anger, and finally, a flicker of guilt. It was an expression I had never witnessed before, and it sent a shiver down my spine. I had hoped for this reaction, yet I felt a strange emptiness settle within me. "Daniel, please," Sarah finally managed to say, her voice trembling. "This isn't the time or place for this." But I was already too far gone, fueled by a mix of anger and adrenaline. "Isn't it? You've been lying to me, to everyone here. Do they know that their beloved teacher is having an affair with her instructor?" My words cut through the air like a knife, and I could see the shock ripple through the crowd. I could feel the eyes of the other students on us, some wide with disbelief, others filled with pity. I had never wanted to be the center of attention, but in this moment I was determined to make my point. I needed everyone to know the truth, to see Sarah for who she really was in that moment, a woman who had betrayed her marriage and her commitments. "Daniel, please," Sarah said again, her voice rising in desperation. "This isn't how we should handle this. We can talk about it later." "Talk about what, Sarah?" I shot back, my voice rising. "Talk about how you've been lying to me while you're in bed with him. How you've been telling me you're at yoga when you're really with him. How you've shattered everything we built together." The words spilled out of me, each one laced with the pain I had been carrying. I felt a surge of satisfaction as I watched her squirm under the weight of my accusations. I had wanted her to feel this, to understand the gravity of her choices. Ryan finally stepped forward, his expression shifting from shock to anger. "This isn't fair, man. You have no idea what you're talking about." His voice was defensive, and I could see the tension in his body as he tried to shield Sarah from the fallout. I turned my gaze to him, feeling a rush of contempt. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm talking about. You think you can just waltz into my life and take what's mine? You think I wouldn't find out?" The other students were now shifting uncomfortably on their mats, glancing at each other, some whispering amongst themselves. I could feel the atmosphere in the room change, the air thick with tension and disbelief. "Daniel, stop," Sarah pleaded, her voice cracking. "You're making a scene. And you're making a fool of me." I shot back, my emotions spilling over. "You think I'm going to allow this to go unaddressed? You think I'm going to just stand here and let you pretend everything is okay?" I could see the anger flare in her eyes, but beneath it there was something else: regret. For a brief moment I thought I saw her resolve waver, and it gave me a flicker of hope. Maybe this was the wake-up call she needed. "Everyone, I'm sorry you had to see this," she finally said, her voice shaky but loud enough for the class to hear. "But this is a private matter between Daniel and me." The murmurs grew louder, and I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks. This was what I had wanted, wasn't it? I had wanted to expose her, to hold her accountable, but standing there with everyone watching, I felt a surge of vulnerability. "Private?" I spat, incredulous. "You've turned our marriage into a joke. How can this be private when you're sharing your bed with someone else?" The confrontation had turned into a spectacle, and I could see the students' eyes darting between us, the shock etched on their faces. I had imagined this moment differently, more triumphant, more cathartic. Instead, it felt like a public execution, and I was the executioner. "Daniel, please, let's just go home and talk about this," Sarah urged, her voice now laced with desperation. But I was too far gone, consumed by the need to make her understand the depth of her betrayal. "No, Sarah. You don't get to dictate the terms anymore. You've lost that privilege. You want to play house with him, fine, but everyone deserves to know who you really are." With that, I turned to the class, my voice steady as I addressed them. "This is what betrayal looks like. This is what happens when trust is broken. Don't let anyone deceive you into thinking that love is invincible. It can crumble in an instant." The silence was palpable, and I could feel the weight of their gazes upon me. Some looked sympathetic, others shocked, but I didn't care. I had said what I needed to say, and in that moment I felt a strange sense of clarity. As I turned back to Sarah, I saw her face, a mixture of anger and shame. I could see tears welling in her eyes, and a part of me felt a pang of regret. I had exposed her in front of everyone, and while I wanted her to feel the consequences of her actions, I hadn't wanted her to break down like this. But it was too late for second thoughts. I had unleashed the truth, and there was no way to take it back. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I didn't mean for it to happen. But I couldn't listen anymore. The moment was too heavy, too raw. I turned and walked out of the studio, leaving behind the chaos I had created, the weight of betrayal still heavy on my shoulders. The confrontation had happened, and while I felt a sense of relief, I also felt a profound emptiness. I had exposed the truth, but in doing so, I had shattered our lives. I stepped out of the yoga studio into the cool evening air, the weight of what I had just done pressing heavily on my chest. My heart raced, but it wasn't from the adrenaline anymore. It was from the realization of the storm I had unleashed. I had exposed Sarah's affair in front of her students, her colleagues, and perhaps worst of all, in front of myself. The satisfaction I had envisioned was now replaced with a sense of hollowness. As I walked away from the studio, I could still hear the murmurs of the class behind me, the shock and confusion palpable. I had imagined their reactions, but I had never anticipated the guilt that would settle over me like a thick fog. I felt like a stranger in my own skin, grappling with the consequences of my actions. I made my way home, each step heavy with the weight of betrayal. The streets felt eerily quiet, as if the world around me had muted in response to the turmoil inside me. I replayed the confrontation in my mind, analyzing every word, every expression. Did I go too far? Did I say too much? When I reached our apartment, I hesitated at the door, my hand hovering over the handle. I didn't want to go inside. I didn't want to face the reality of what had just happened. But I knew I had to. I needed to confront the aftermath of my actions, to face Sarah and whatever was left of our marriage. I opened the door slowly, stepping into the silence of our home. The familiar scent of her lavender candles filled the air, but it felt suffocating now. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation that was yet to come. As I walked into the living room, I found Sarah sitting on the couch, her head in her hands, tears streaming down her cheeks. The sight broke my heart, but I reminded myself of why I had done it. I had wanted her to feel the consequences of her betrayal. I had wanted her to understand the pain she had caused. "Daniel," she said, her voice choked with emotion as she looked up at me. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you." I felt a surge of anger at her words. "But you did, Sarah. You hurt me in ways I can't even begin to describe. You shattered our trust, our marriage." "How could you do this?" "I don't know," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I got caught up in everything, the stress of work, the pressure to be perfect. He was just there and it happened. I never meant for it to go this far." Her words felt like a betrayal all over again. "So you just thought it was okay to sleep with him, to lie to me, to pretend everything was fine?" I was confused. I thought I could handle it. I thought it was just a phase, she pleaded, desperation in her eyes. "But it was never about you, Daniel. It was about me and my own insecurities. I didn't know how to talk to you about what I was feeling." I felt my anger falter, replaced by a deep sense of sadness. "You could have talked to me, Sarah. I would have listened. We could have worked through this together. Instead, you chose to betray me." "I know," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "And I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I was just lost." The silence that followed was thick, a chasm widening between us. I wanted to scream, to rage against the injustice of it all, but I was too exhausted. The confrontation had drained me, and now I felt like a shell of the man I once was. "What happens now?" I asked finally, my voice heavy with resignation. "I don't know," she replied, tears streaming down her face. "I need to figure out what I want, what this all means. I never wanted to lose you, Daniel." "Then why did you risk everything?" I shot back, frustration bubbling to the surface again. "I thought I could control it," she cried, her voice rising. "I didn't want to lose you, but I didn't know how to handle my own feelings. It was a stupid mistake, and I hate myself for it." The weight of her words hung in the air, and I felt the tears prick at my own eyes. "You have no idea what this feels like for me, Sarah. I trusted you, I loved you, and now everything feels broken." "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just need you to understand that it wasn't about you. I was struggling, and I didn't know how to reach out." "Struggling," I echoed, incredulous. "You think that justifies your actions? You think lying and cheating is a solution to your problems?" "I don't think it justifies anything. I know it was wrong," she replied, her voice filled with anguish. "I just want you to know that I never meant for it to go this far. I thought I could keep it separate, that I could manage everything." The room felt heavy with unspoken words, and I realized that this conversation was just the beginning. We were standing at a crossroads, and I had no idea which path to take. "Do you still love him?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated, and in that moment I felt my heart shatter further. "I don't know," she said finally, her voice trembling. "I thought I did, but now I don't know what any of this means." The truth hung between us, a chasm that felt impossible to bridge. I had wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, but I hadn't wanted this. I hadn't wanted her to be lost and broken, just as I felt. "I need time to think," I said, my voice filled with exhaustion. "I can't do this right now." "I understand," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. As I turned away from her, I felt the weight of our shattered relationship pressing down on me. I had exposed the truth, but now I was left to grapple with the consequences. What would happen next? Would we be able to find our way back to each other, or was this the end of everything we had built together? The days that followed the confrontation were a blur of emotions and silence. Sarah and I operated in the same space but felt like strangers. The intimacy that once filled our apartment had been replaced by an unbearable tension. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, haunted by memories of laughter, love, and trust that now felt like distant echoes. I spent most of my time at work, burying myself in projects to distract from the chaos at home. Each day felt like an uphill battle, and the more I tried to push through, the more the weight of our situation pressed down on me. I could escape the reality of what had happened. It was like a shadow that followed me relentlessly. At night, when I returned home, the silence was deafening. Sarah would often be curled up on the couch, lost in her thoughts, her face a mask of regret and sorrow. I wanted to reach out to comfort her, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. The betrayal felt too raw, too fresh. I had exposed her in front of everyone, and now she was a shell of the woman I had loved. One evening, after another long day at work, I returned home to find Sarah sitting at the kitchen table, her hands clasped tightly together, her face pale. The sight of her made my heart ache, but I steeled myself against the pull of empathy. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, pulling out a chair and sitting across from her. I could see the pain etched on her face, the guilt weighing heavily in her eyes. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, her voice trembling. "About us, about everything. I know I messed up, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want to try and make things right." "Make things right?" I echoed, incredulous. "How do you propose we do that? You broke my trust, Sarah. You shattered everything we built together." "I know," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "But I want to understand what went wrong. I want to fix this. I love you, Daniel. I don't want to lose you." Her words tugged at my heart, but I felt a wall rising within me, a protective barrier against the pain. "Love isn't enough anymore. You can't just say that and expect everything to go back to normal. It doesn't work like that." "I know it doesn't," she replied, her voice shaking. "But I want to show you that I can change. I want to go to therapy, to talk about my feelings, to work through this together." The idea of therapy felt like a double-edged sword. On one hand, I wanted to believe that she could change, that we could heal together. On the other hand, I was terrified of opening old wounds, of being vulnerable again. "Do you really think therapy will fix this?" I asked, skepticism lacing my words. "I think it's a start," she said, her voice filled with determination. "I don't want to lose you, Daniel. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to prove that I can be better." I looked at her, searching for sincerity in her eyes. I wanted to believe her, but trust was a fragile thing, and mine had been shattered. "What if I can't forgive you?" "Then we'll figure it out," she replied, her voice steady despite the tears. "Just need you to give me a chance. I need you to let me show you that I can be the woman you fell in love with again." I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me, but it was quickly extinguished by the weight of reality. "It's not that simple, Sarah. You can't just erase what happened. It's going to take time, and I don't know if I'm ready for that." "I understand," she said, her voice breaking. "But I'm willing to fight for us. I want to be better for you, for us. Please, just give me a chance." I sighed, a mixture of frustration and sadness washing over me. "I need time to think. I can't make any promises right now." "Take all the time you need," she replied, her voice filled with resignation. "I'll be here when you're ready." I nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle over me. I wanted to believe that we could find our way back to each other, but the path ahead felt uncertain and treacherous. As the days turned into weeks, we began to navigate this new reality. Sarah started attending therapy sessions, and I encouraged her to share her experiences with me, but it was difficult. Each session felt like a reminder of the betrayal, a painful reminder of what had been lost. I found myself grappling with my own feelings of anger and hurt. I started seeing a therapist as well, trying to make sense of the turmoil inside me. It was a difficult process, but I knew I needed to confront my feelings if I ever hoped to move forward. In therapy, I learned about the importance of communication and vulnerability in relationships. I began to understand that while Sarah's actions had hurt me deeply, I, too, had a role in our disconnect. I had taken her for granted, assuming that our love was enough to weather any storm. As I processed my feelings, I began to see glimmers of hope. Sarah was making an effort to change, to understand herself and her motivations. I could see her trying to reconnect with me, to rebuild the trust that had been lost. But every time I looked at her, I felt the weight of the betrayal linger in the air. It was a constant reminder of the fragility of love, of how easily it could be shattered. One evening, as we sat together in the living room, the tension between us felt palpable. I could see the uncertainty in her eyes, the fear of what I might say. "Daniel, can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, my heart racing. "What's on your mind?" "I just want to know where we stand," she said, her voice trembling. "I want to understand if there's a way for us to move forward or if we're just prolonging the inevitable." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. "I don't know, Sarah. I want to believe we can find our way back, but it's going to take time." "I understand," she replied, her voice filled with sincerity. "But I'm willing to wait. I just need you to be honest with me about how you're feeling." I looked into her eyes, searching for the love we once shared. "I'm scared, Sarah. Scared of losing you, scared of being hurt again. I don't know if I can trust you yet." "I know," she said softly, her voice filled with understanding. "But I promise I'll do everything I can to earn that trust back. I love you, Daniel, and I'm not going anywhere." I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me once more. Perhaps there was a chance for us yet, a way to rebuild what had been lost. But it would be a long and arduous journey, one filled with uncertainty and vulnerability. As I looked at Sarah, I realized that love was not just about the highs, it was also about navigating the lows together. And as painful as this experience had been, it was also an opportunity for growth, for both of us. But the question remained, could we truly heal, or was our love forever tainted by betrayal? As the weeks turned into months, Sarah and I began to navigate the complexities of our new reality. The road to healing was long and fraught with obstacles, but we were determined to try. We attended therapy together, sharing our fears and frustrations, slowly peeling back the layers of hurt that had built up between us. In those sessions, I learned to express my feelings openly, to articulate the pain her betrayal had caused. I shared how her affair had shattered my sense of self-worth and trust, how it had left me questioning everything I thought I knew about our marriage. In turn, Sarah opened up about her insecurities, her struggles with feeling inadequate, and how she had sought validation in the wrong place. It was painful, but it was also cathartic. With each session, I could feel the weight of the past beginning to lift, even if only slightly. We were learning to communicate again, to listen to each other with compassion and understanding. One evening, after a particularly intense therapy session, we sat together on our couch, the soft glow of the lamp casting a warm light around us. Sarah looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of hope and apprehension. "Do you think we can really get through this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I paused, considering her question. "I want to believe we can," I replied, my heart heavy with uncertainty. "But it's going to take time, and we both have to be committed to the process." "I'm committed," she said, her voice firm. "I know I messed up, but I want to prove to you that I can be better. I want to rebuild your trust." Her sincerity struck a chord within me. I remembered the woman I had fallen in love with, the woman who had stood by my side through thick and thin. It was hard to reconcile that image with the betrayal I had experienced, but I also knew that love was about growth and forgiveness. "I believe you," I said finally, my voice steady. But it's going to take a lot of effort from both of us. We both have to be willing to face our demons. I'm ready, she replied, a flicker of determination in her eyes. I'll do whatever it takes. As the days turned into weeks, I began to notice subtle changes in our relationship. The laughter that had once filled our home slowly returned, albeit cautiously. We took small steps, cooking dinner together, going for long walks, sharing our dreams and fears. It felt like we were rediscovering each other, but it was a delicate dance, and I was still haunted by the shadows of the past. One weekend, we decided to take a short trip to a cabin in the woods, hoping that a change of scenery would help us reconnect. As we sat by the fire one evening, the warmth of the flames flickering in front of us, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. "Do you remember when we first came here?" Sarah asked, her voice filled with nostalgia. I nodded, a smile creeping onto my face. "You were so excited about that hiking trail. You dragged me up the mountain even though I was completely out of shape." She laughed, the sound light and carefree. "And you complained the entire way up." "I did," I admitted, chuckling. "But it was worth it when we reached the top and saw that view." As we reminisced about our past, I felt the walls I had built around my heart begin to crumble. The laughter, the shared memories, it felt like a bridge back to the love we had once known. "Daniel," Sarah said softly, her gaze steady. "I know I can't change the past, but I want to create a future with you. I want to be the partner you deserve." I looked into her eyes, searching for any hint of insincerity, but all I saw was a deep yearning for connection. "I want that too," I confessed, my voice thick with emotion. "But it's going to take time and it's not going to be easy." "I'm willing to put in the work," she said, her voice filled with determination. "I promise I'll do everything I can to earn your trust back." In that moment, I realized that healing wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about learning from it. It was about acknowledging the pain and choosing to move forward together. As the evening wore on, we sat side by side, the warmth of the fire enveloping us. I felt a sense of hope blossoming within me, a belief that perhaps we could find our way back to each other after all. The journey ahead would be long, filled with ups and downs, but I was willing to take that leap of faith. I had loved Sarah once, and despite the betrayal, I could still see the woman I had fallen for beneath the layers of hurt. As we sat there in the flickering light, I reached for her hand, intertwining our fingers. "Let's take this one day at a time," I said softly. She smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "One day at a time," she echoed, her grip tightening around my hand. In that moment I felt a glimmer of hope, a fragile but persistent light shining through the darkness. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was a start. We were both willing to fight for our love, to navigate the complexities of our relationship together. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like we might just be able to find our way back to each other. The road ahead would be challenging, but we were ready to face it together, hand in hand. The journey of healing had begun, and I was cautiously optimistic about what the future might hold.